whether it be family or business. We feel that the New Britain Township family is loyal and committed to making our township the best it can be, and you are a significant part of that commitment. Thank you for 20 years of dedicated service to our residents and taxpayers. From the New Britain Township Board of Supervisors.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're coming down. We can go. Bill, the whole night has been here for 20 years. How's it going? Good morning. That's for you. We'll let you guys. How about we'll let the chief and him get a photo first, and then you guys let your photo. Oh, yeah. All right. And then one more time, the board. Oh, wait.
This is the rock of 20 years.
Yeah, I should get that, not him.
Put that on it, make a note of that, Matt. Spouse awards. Wait, somebody else. Oh. Thank you. Oh. Now you got to put up with the rest of us.
Thank you, very cool.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
You're quite welcome.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I managed to read it without stuttering.
Thank you.
Normally there's a clearing out period, so we'll let everybody take their time and clear out.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, if the board would like to get some coffee or anything right now, real quick, while they're clearing out, go ahead and do that. Or I'm gonna grab some coffee. Right, are you getting coffee? Would you like some coffee? Yes, I would, thank you.
He's getting me a cup of coffee.
Or no, wait, Bill's getting up. All right. It's a work session, it's more, I think that's part of else. I'll do it. It's the percentage. Just short, we're gonna get you a cup of coffee.
I'm okay right now. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Thank you all for your patience. We all work up an appetite talking in executive session. So. All right, so the next item on the agenda, Park and Recreation vacancy interviews. I will turn this over to Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board is aware, at the last meeting, we discussed the vacancy currently on our Park and Recreation Board. You instructed me to reach out to the applicants you'd like to meet with them in person. I was able to schedule 2 interviews today with Robert Detman and Bill Hount. They are both in attendance this evening to meet with the board. There will be one more that is scheduled for the October 17th meeting. And I will be talking to the board about appointments again later in the meeting, but if the board would like to proceed with those interviews, Robert Detman is here.
All right, sure, Mr. Detman, if you'd like to. Oh, we don't have a lectern. If you feel like just standing up, coming to the table, it's up to you.
You can sit at the table. Good morning.
Good morning. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm pulling up your, I have my iPad. I'm pulling up your form. So.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes.
Sure, Robert Detman, live in Reserve New Britain, Hamlet Drive, 324 Hamlet Drive. Been there for 16 years, something like that, at this point. 3 children, one just started UNAMI, 2 others in Butler, 12, 10, and 7. 7-year-old, actually, the 21-year-old. Very active, all 3 of them very active in sports in their area, LV sports, use all the parks very often, so very familiar with the area. Just myself, very active in, with my children in youth sports, trying to be as much in activities as we go, within my development, trying to move things along there as well. Our development is consistently, changing and developing, moving along. So I'm very involved in there. And so being that, I was, kind of branch out to be a little bit more involved in the community and what you guys, what New Britain does now, with all the activities and, like I said, rentals and so on and so forth, and activities and events in the American area. So I'm not going anywhere, obviously. So my kids are, we're very in tuned into the development into the area in New Britain. So it's definitely something I'd be interested in pursuing.
Does anyone have any questions?
No.
No? Does anybody have any questions?
No, not this one.
No.
You did a good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
All right, so Mr. Halton is not here today? Oh, he is here. Okay, I thought you, okay, Mr.
I
Halton.
have one other one scheduled for the 17th.
Oh, okay, very good. All right, if you'd like to step up, please, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Glad that the other gentleman got to go first.
Morning.
I'm Bill Houghton. Did you want me to just do the description or did you?
Just tell us a little bit about
About
yourself.
yourself, yeah, we all provided with your forms, the township, so we kind of have that little bit of background, so.
I'm Bill Houghton. I was born and raised in New Britain Township, went to Peace Valley School in UNAMI and West. But I'm a fairly recent transplant back to the township. I bought a house on Chapman Road, right around the corner from the house I grew up in, where my mom still lives on New Galena. They've lived there for over 50 years. Actually, my mom and dad both spent their entire lives in New Britain Township. I moved back here to be closer to family. I can work wherever I want. So made the decision to come back from Park City, Utah, to come here. So I guess my endorsement of New Britain Township is my last 3 residences are Park City, Key Island, and Charleston, and Savannah. I made the decision to come back here. I did leave a son behind in Utah at the University of Utah. My wife and I and our 15-year-old daughter relocated to Chapman Road earlier this year. Daughter is going to Tohican, just started back there. I'm 200 yards as the crow flies from my mom. I'm 300 yards from the crow flies from my brother on New Galena Road. I've been active in civic things everywhere that I've been. I'm a community marketing consultant, and that's what took me to the places that I have been. But even before leaving, I was active in the Doylestown GCs a long time ago. I've just been on community and municipal, mostly on the accommodations tax and hospitality side, since that's my marketing background. But I've been engaged in the community pretty much all my career. Something that I enjoy doing and would like to give back to Britain Town.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any questions?
I do have a question that's popped in my mind. Would you accept a position that wasn't a voting position on Park and Rec?
Sure.
And the same question for you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Both sound very like assets, and we are looking for volunteers to help out with and help with planning our events. We'd like to make them better. So any involvement we can have with the community, I welcome.
And no one else, I think, has any
Any
questions?
questions, Cynthia?
Oh, yeah, does Cynthia have any questions?
Cynthia, do you have any?
No, I do not have any questions at this time.
Very good. All right, thank you, sir.
Maybe you should explain who Cynthia is and why she's talking.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry, Cynthia is our 5th supervisor. She is currently at home, not feeling well, so
Joining us.
she's joining us by Zoom. So if there's nothing else then in relation to that at this time,
Nothing in relation to that.
very good. We will move on to presentation items. And since we're done with photos, I'm taking my tie off.
So if I could, Mr. Chairman, just give you some background. We're joined today by Chris Stanford. He's the project manager for the missing link of the Neshaminy Greenway Trail. And we've asked Mr. Stanford to attend today and give the board an update about where we are, because we're getting close to finalizing the drawings and we're looking at getting closer to construction beginning in early 2023. Chris.
Thanks, man. Good morning, everybody. Chris Stanford from Mike Baker International. You may recall, I've been working with the township over the last several years, I'll say, on different portions of the Neshaminy Greenway. So here today to talk about the last piece that's on the former Coleman property between the creek and Upper State Road. So as you may all recall, we have a number of existing trails that connect to this property. The piece here that along the creek that connects out the Bristol Road and leads it to Chalfont. We have a section near Leapson Lane, a parallel to Upper State Road that connects up towards the Shalbred sewer plant, and then down along the Neshaminy Creek towards the 202 Parkway Trail. And then the remaining piece that goes through Beulah Cemetery out to New Britain train station. The piece that we're going to be talking about today is this piece here that's basically is the gap that's on the former Coleman property, and connects to the trail that was built about a year or two ago behind the Willowwood development. Just a little bit of background. This is a photo from 1971 on that same property that shows the old farm buildings, the access road, and then there's a farm road here that I would kind of direct your attention to, because that's part of our idea to repurpose that farm lane as part of the design. So again, here's sort of the different view with Upper State Road on the bottom, the existing pole barn, the existing former residence, and then the garage building that's here on the property. General location is basically to connect to the existing crosswalk here at Leapson Lane and Upper State Road. Go through the adjacent evergreens here on the inside of the earth berm that was constructed as part of the previous project. Skirt around the pole barn building and parallel out along this farm lane out towards the creek, and then connect over to the existing trail behind the Willowwood development.
It's amazing how much growth there's been in
Yeah,
50 years.
And it's almost interesting if you look at this sort of L-shaped piece of woods that were left back in the day. You kind of can see the difference. You kind of can sort of see that here with the different colors on the area. It's kind of interesting. So just to give you an update where we're at, where we are right now. Obviously, we completed all our field survey work and our base mapping. We conducted a wetland survey. Fortunately, no wetlands were found on the property, so that will not be an issue. We also conducted phase 1 archaeology study that's needed because of our permitting and being located adjacent to the Neshaminy Creek. Again, fortunately, nothing really was discovered there as part of that, so that won't be an issue. And here today to talk about the preliminary layout and design, and our progress moving forward on the permit submission for DEP. So we're going to talk about basically kind of work our way from Upper State Road and then work our way back towards the creek with the design. So first we're going to look at the proposed parking lot area. As you may recall, there was a sort of a staging area, a stone parking lot that was constructed adjacent in conjunction with the previous trail project. So we're trying to leverage that and basically recreate I'm gonna create a new parking area using that stone area as a starting point. What we're planning to do is pave the existing driveway and the parking lot using the, asphalt areas. We are proposing to bring the trail in off of Leapson and Upper State Road where the existing crosswalk is. That'll be the entrance to the trail network. And then work our way through this evergreen area on the backside of the earth berm. And then we are proposing to construct a sort of a gathering area that would likely include some benches, some bike racks, a map kiosk. Right now, there really isn't a place where you get a view as a user of the whole Neshaminy Greenway, at least within the township or in Doylestown. So we thought that may be a good place for a map, so users can orient themselves and decide which way they want to go, because this is kind of a crossroads in some respect to where they could go within the trail network. We are proposing 20 parking spaces and 2 ADA parking spaces as part of the design. We'd be installing some boulders and a removable bollard to sort of separate the vehicular movements from the trail. And one element I kind of get you'd like to get your feedback on is we had an idea to construct some stone columns at the entrance to the trail off of Upper State Road, as well as at the entrance driveway to the park, kind of as a landmark, as an identifier. Something that would look something like this potentially. Obviously, this is a little fancier than we were probably thinking, but maybe a stone column on each side of the trail that would have a plaque or a signage to announce the Neshaminy Greenway, maybe to another one that would identify destinations, distances, and that sort of thing. And then something similar could be placed at either side of the park entrance to, have a name for the park and, that sort of thing. So today I was just hoping to get a little bit of feedback from the board and from staff on some of the aspects of this design. And I guess this is the first one I would kind of put to the board. Is this something that would work well in the park?
What exactly you're asking about the
idea of some kind of a landmark columns or something like that as part of the design.
I like the idea.
I do too.
Great.
Yep, so do I.
Great.
Chris, if I could add,
Yeah.
something that we had talked about when we talked last week or the week before about these stone columns. We're experiencing up at the Beulah Cemetery where there's similar columns, and they were part of the cemetery themselves, but we're having a problem or had a problem with cars using the trail to get into the cemetery. And so we've been talking to Chris about this and trying to incorporate a design for a removable bollard at key places, well, like where the parking lot is, and then down
here,
down there. Because we don't want to introduce a problem at the southern end like we just solved at Beulah, and just to make sure that we prevent vehicular traffic from circumnavigating the trail.
Well, we need to discourage traffic from going up our
Yes.
road there as well, so I would kindly request that there be some kind of
You're thinking like some sort of gate.
a gate or a bollard or something that like at least Public Works could remove when they need to get back in there, something.
But we don't have other traffic back there.
Yeah, we were thinking that'd be a good place for a formal gate system. We right now showing a fence line that would separate more like the public spaces, like the trail and the parking lot from the barn and the public works spaces right now. So we would recommend a gate, I think, that location. But yeah, it's a good point, Matt. The one other good thing we have going on is we have a concrete ADA ramp here, which I guess just my experience, people don't want to drive over. They kind of figure out that that's pedestrian space, but we could add another bollard because hate to say it, but we in the past we've had drunk drivers and things like, unfortunately so that's a good suggestion. We can add another bollard there. And then, we can coordinate with Ryan on what he thinks would be appropriate for gate system or something like that, maybe at this end of the lot.
I have a question about the parking lot. I've in previous design sketches or discussions, I thought that was going to be left unpaved and stone.
I mean, that's something we can discuss. We were just thinking for long-term maintenance that having a paved surface
Plowing,
would work.
stuff like that.
Might work better. It's tough for plowing and
things
Why
like
would-
that.
Why would we need to plow it? Because we're not plowing the trail.
That's true.
I mean, that's open for discussion. I mean.
Well, I think asphalt is probably, and this is Ryan's expertise, Mr. Cressman. Asphalt's going to be more expensive to maintain over time, replace, rather than stone.
Over time, I would agree with that. But
Is this gonna have heavy wear and tear though? That's my question. I mean, you put in a regular parking lot and unless you're driving over it with heavy vehicles, parking lot should last forever.
Chris, what are the parking situations in other areas along the trail? Is there a standard level that they're asking for?
we did a small trailhead parking area, kind of catty-corner across the street at,
It's all
on Township. There's about half a dozen parking spaces. We paved that one. I guess I would ask, what do you do in the rest of your parks? Because this really will be a park. Eventually, this will be something that serves the rest of the larger park as well. So I don't know, do you park, you pave all the rest of your lots or?
I believe all of our other ones are paved.
With the
North-
exception of
North Branch,
Oh, all the
overflow
way
parking.
back.
The overflow
Oh,
parking in the back.
yeah.
Can I ask another question? What is the regulations with having the ADA?
Well, yeah, that's,
Well, they've got to be paid probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
At a minimum, those two would have to be paved. Yeah, we did Cover Bridge Park in New Britain Borough. They had a stone lot, I think it's still stone, and we had to pave out the last two little ADA spots. And actually the connection to the trails up.
I'm just thinking, a lot of state parks I've been in, a lot of the parking areas are not paved. And since this isn't something that, we're not going to be plowing the trails. I don't know that we need. But we'd have to plow up to the building if we need to get into the maintenance building.
Mr. Chairman, if I
yeah, I'm sorry, I'm
could- I'm
thinking,
just talking, I mean, if Rob, to save money, Public Works could do that, you went to a heavy duty paving, like Mr. Jones said, so you need something more, a lighter paving cross section, Public Works does it. You're paving the handicap ramps and that's all, or spaces, so that's always an issue anyway. My experience is something small like this would be paved, there's other things going on and there's potential for future expansion, so. Although typically some of the more rural townships will just do the stone for what you had mentioned, the Public Works can do, I think it saves some costs and it'd be a little nicer. And you have to do part of it anyway for the ADA. Maybe you don't need to stripe it and do everything with that, I don't know if the other ones stripe it, but at least a driveway cross section. Or a light duty road cross section that Public Works can do.
I think it also will organize the vehicles better than just an unmarked stone lot in terms of where people will park.
Actually, Lake Galena, most of the parking lots. At
Yeah, but-
least on the lower side.
On the lower
I just
side.
hate to see a park and then see a large swath of area asphalted over.
It's totally up for discussion. Yeah, this is a view of what's there today. Gravel lot, obviously it would be improved from this a bit, but. Yeah, it would be a general look that's not too different from this.
Where is the public area gonna be in relation to the Twin Pines showing in that slide?
Then everything that's stone here would basically be the footprint of the parking area. The trail would kind of be in the foreground going, across the screen this way
Mhm.
behind the barn. We'd probably put the gate, up in this area by this bush here.
The benches and the meeting area you were
Yeah, it would be
discussing
here.
would be here. Okay.
Yeah,
I want to make sure that's not too close to the pole barn
so again, we could.
to prevent issues of
Sure.
people wandering
What-
off the trail and
Bill, staff, what are your perceptions on paving versus stone?
I think that paving can be done by our public works group. We'll have to do, as you say, the two handicap accessible at a minimum to begin with, but then I think our public works group with the equipment they have could do the rest of the paving. I think paving's a necessity. And I think for the heavy volume that would be in there, I think a decent paving job wouldn't require any real maintenance for 15, 20 years.
I would agree with that.
I mean, I think you're probably gonna end up paving almost a quarter of it anyway, just to do the area around the two handicap spots.
And
Right,
the entrance.
And
to
then the
trail.
entrance to the trail. You
And
know,
the driveway's already, yeah, I mean, I think paving it makes the most sense. I think it for long-term use of it, I think that having it paved is better.
I would agree, Cynthia Jones, that we should pave it all in one hit would make it easier for things to be done and completed all at one time. Michael, would it change how much since this is part of the grant, would it be a significant change in price and cost to have it paved by our own staff?
I believe it was already included as in-house services as part of the original grant, so.
yeah, I think that was
Right.
part of our match,
Yeah, our
right?
assumption was that it was gonna be paved and that the public works would.
Along with the trail.
Also
Yeah.
Along with the trail, yeah, so,
That was our matching part, I believe.
Yeah, and we are planning a rain garden or infiltration area on the low side of the parking area to try to mitigate any of the runoff from the pavement. So, that would help from that aspect.
I'm having such a hard time looking at it because it's not square or parallel with the pole barn or the road. It's driving me nuts. I can't, I'm having such a hard time.
Trying to,
Or the tree row.
It's a good segue, 'cause, it's gonna get worse before it gets better.
trying to read the yellow writing. Okay.
Anyway, just to keep on going here, this is a view, looking from, sort of the entrance down the existing Evergreen Road. So the yellow would be sort of the proposed trail coming into the park and the trail area. Again, as mentioned before, we do have a few trees that we're trying to work around, but again, we need to discuss that a bit. There's a couple of these pines here, and there's a little tree row adjacent to the driveway coming in. So we did look at a couple different layouts to try to mitigate some damage to these trees. The way it lays out right now, would probably be into the roots of some of those two twin pine trees, and then maybe one or two of the trees on the tree row coming into the driveway. So we had one thought about kinking the driveway more. I think I'm with you guys that hard to visualize it, but as oriented this way, but again, is there a strong feeling to have this all kind of uniform, parallel to Upper State, parallel to the pole barn, or should we try to mitigate impact to trees?
What would angle of parking versus headlights into the road if it's no,
You're gonna damage the tree roots, he's right. The more, if it's already angled, I'd go even more.
Yeah.
okay.
I'd mitigate damage to the trees.
Yeah.
I think if
Fixed tree line along.
we do
along
it
Upper State.
straight along the building, yes, you may lose the twin pines, but it's not like we don't have additional trees in our tree bank.
And that's a good point that I was gonna raise, maybe instead of. We're talking about two trees. Are these two trees in a condition that the board wants to save? If not, can we replace those two trees with 15 trees in this area, or however many trees that are a better fit for this, that makes this design work better? We didn't know what the board would like to do.
I don't really think that the angle of the parking lot is that important. The pine trees are not going to be dropping leaves onto the asphalt, making it slippery. And they kind of are attractive in their, I mean, if they have to go, they have to go, but if they don't have to go, why not try to save them?
You get within 5 or 6 feet of those pine trees at the base, they're dead. Plus they have the pine needles that are just.
Yeah, they're not in the best condition, I would say. I don't know.
I wouldn't-
We could replace,
If you're going that direction, I was obviously assuming we would save them, but looking at a little more. You have quite a bit, your ordinance requires, instead of being in lieu of tree replacement when people, developers can't. This is a perfect example of where we have a couple of jobs coming in or in the past or coming in the pipeline. Those landscaping requirements we put towards landscaping the entire parking lot, buffering and landscaping, and really make it look nice instead of. The layout isn't the end of the world as far as it being angled.
No, I mean, it just drives me nuts, but I don't care.
I would re-landscape it and instead of accepting being in lieu of on certain projects, you know, you actually put the money, or you take the money and then that'll be part of the landscaping plan. I think
Yeah.
it can look a lot nicer. And, it maybe incorporate into you're doing a rain garden.
Yeah.
I think that would actually lend itself some landscaping around the rain garden and, you know, beautify that area.
Yeah, that was one of our sort of next steps was once we get the layout of the parking lot, got agreed to, we would come up with a landscape concept to.
Yeah, it would
look at.
almost be nice to twist the lot and then landscape to hide the side of the building, you know, with trees and maybe do a rain garden along that whole side. And I think, yeah, trying to save those 2 old pines is limiting to how you can create a really nice new landscape feature. It may, you know, because if you're trying to not disturb their roots, you know, which, yeah, pines don't like to have their roots disturbed at all. They're very sensitive to it.
No trees do.
You know, I think we're limiting ourselves to how well we can make that look in the long run.
I agree with the building. I think you should do some landscaping around the building to.
Buffer
hide
that
it a bit.
from, yeah.
It's not very attractive.
Yeah, right along the fence. You could, it might be able to push the
Yeah, I mean,
fence a
there's
little
some
bit.
space here, you know, between the lot and the fence, and we could, you know, do a nice landscaping concept around the outside edges of the parking lot.
Chris, it doesn't, which way you slope in the park?
Yeah, we were probably gonna pitch it towards the rain garden.
Okay.
And
So you're gonna have a pretty good elevation there, aren't you?
We'll have to look at that in a little more detail, but yeah, I mean.
That
relatively
that,
flat.
that existing lot, I thought sloped to the building.
That's where it is. It looks like it.
That's what it
Looks
looks
like
like.
it looks to the building, yeah.
So I almost you rain garden, you could do a rain garden. In that.
I think that photo is deceiving.
It does.
It
look
is-
like a stream now.
Yeah, it looks like the building sits lower than the lot at the driveway end.
I just don't remember much.
Yeah.
topography out
I
there.
kind of remember walking around that it had the look on the outside at the bottom, like it got a lot of water.
We can take a look at that in more detail to figure out where the right place is for the rain garden, definitely.
Yeah, and if
Okay,
you're gonna do a rain garden on that side, we should incorporate, you know, getting the downspouts from the building tied into that and, you know, doing all that kind of work as well.
I mean, it's still gonna, you know, Chris.
If there's
you've
even
already been
downspouts on
working
that pole barn.
together.
There's no downspouts, just flows.
Chris can work
Yeah.
with Ron in our office a bit, come up with some documents to look at.
Maybe that's why it looks so bad.
Yeah, it
around
free
the
flows
bottom.
right off the roof.
Okay, all right, so we'll keep working on refining the parking lot there. Moving on, again, moving out from the barn, it's on the left of this image towards the creek. The plan right now is just sort of parallel this existing row of evergreens here. And then work our way into that old farm lane, that's in the woods. This is a view looking back towards Upper State Road at, where the row of evergreens is, and then the earth berm on the right-hand side, looking back towards Upper State. And then trail's kind of gonna parallel that, moving back towards the wooded area of the property. You actually can get a pretty good view of this farm lane. It's kind of remarkable when you stand there. There is a big gap in the woods, you know, where the road used to be. There's some small stuff in there, some saplings and so on, bushes and stuff, but the larger trees are to the side of it. So fortunately, we'll be able to minimize the tree clearing by using that farm lane. One other topic that came up in our conversation with Matt and Mike and staff was, is there any possibility to repurpose the old garage building there that's on the site? We kicked around some ideas, whether it could be, is it a good place for a restroom building? Could it be some kind of a gathering place? Could it even be some kind of seasonal business? Could it be ice cream shop, a microbrewery, something like that, some other kind of business that might be able to take advantage of that space. It will take some investment to do that. But we sort of kicked around an idea like this, that it could be some, instead of having our kiosk and everything else by the shop, maybe we relocate it to this building area. You could do some kind of fancy pavement treatment, and if you wanted to, maybe it could be some kind of an office space for the park, the park department or the trail or something like that. So I know this is sort of a long-term idea. It's not really incorporated into the grant project right now.
but we wanted to throw it out there, for discussion at this point.
That's my opinion also. I don't really see why the building is not in that bad a shape, unlike the farmhouse. And I don't particularly want to have it torn down if it can be repurposed into something. Number one, it saves us the cost of demolition. Number two, it doesn't waste an existing structure that's usable. So if you can go down that path, I would welcome that. Now, I may be overruled by someone that's gonna tell me that it's sinking slowly into the earth, but,
The apartment is not in bad shape. The farmhouse, on the other hand.
No,
Yeah, we-
We've
there's no-
given direction on the farmhouse.
Let's go. So this is, as Chris said, this is not a part of the original grant, but we wanted to, because I've heard from the board that you wanted to entertain any ideas of keeping the standalone apartment garage. I asked Chris to kind of come up with something, what would that look like?
Mhm.
And that would be something that we'd have to start planning for now and budgeting for. It would be, as Chris said, it would be a significant investment in that building just to get it up to usable. Right now, there are no bathrooms on the first floor. They're all on the second floor. To make it that, this envisioned idea. Words are cheap. It's easy to talk about. It's fun to talk about and envision, but the reality of it, this would be a costly investment. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I just want to be realistic about it, and that this is something that we'd have to, really get further into a design and come up with a budget and, explore opportunities for this site.
unless we found either a nonprofit or a park or entered into an agreement such as SEPTA did with their old train stations that for minimal rent, the lessee has to make certain improvements and bring it up to standard.
So we'll have to get our attorneys, since we purchased this with open space funds, we're gonna need a nice little note on what we are allowed to and not allowed to have used with this building in terms of improvements, for profit, nonprofit, blah, 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 blah. Because there may be restrictions on any of that.
Yeah.
Since public funds were used to purchase it.
I'm not.
No, I'm
I'm going on to, you have public restrooms. I'm not sure unless the building's occupied and there's someone there that we really want to,
Yeah, I'm
Invest
concerned
in
about
that,
that. I'm what our insurance carrier would think about that.
And
because of
I'd be curious what
vandalism.
Chief's opinion on that
And
too.
Chief's
yeah.
opinion. I mean, we have porta potties out here on North Branch, and I
They're on
guess.
fire every so often.
That's
Yeah.
obviously an easier way to do it, or provide those services. So yeah, something for John's Weather incorporated into the concept. But
Once it's opened as a park and it's available, it's going to attract the right people, but unfortunately, a few of the wrong ones might show up too. So I don't know if we want interior bathrooms unless it's maintained by a lessee.
Or they're just, if we have somebody in the building,
Right.
yeah, and it's
Right.
all, they're only open 9 to 5 or 9 to 4
Right.
and not on weekends. I mean,
Well, there are public bathrooms in Warrington and in, sorry, I just started talking.
Go ahead.
There are public bathrooms in Doylestown and Warrington at their main parks. I find it, when I walk these trails, that there are no public bathrooms, which is very inconvenient at times. I do think we should look at the trail as a whole and see if we can incorporate some of those public facilities. It is also, it'll be a great addition if we could get someone into that kind of building to have a destination, be it a shop, a brewery, or an ice cream store. It makes the trails much more attractive and usable for families and things. I think this is the purpose of a multi-municipal trail, to move from one municipality through the other. It'll make it so much more wanted.
Attractive.
So, yeah.
Well, Doylestown's police department's right next to their big park, so that's a bonus for the maintenance, and they also lock it down at night.
Mr. Chairman,
So-
I was just saying, before Cynthia said something, I just mentioned to Ryan, other townships they get locked down at night at
Yeah.
dusk, so. Again, being active in sports and stuff with my kids, you know, late night games, sometimes the restrooms are locked down, you gotta hit it before you leave, but there's plenty of parks, and Cynthia mentioned a couple. And also at trailheads where they're just locked at night at dusk.
Right.
Like, I don't know what your hours of operations were planned for this, but
There's not gonna be any lighting, right?
Right, it's usually,
So-
daytime use only.
usually they're closed up then at night and then they're reopened on the weekends. As Cynthia mentioned, now, I'm not going to the part of someone's in their business. I think that's a whole different
Yeah.
discussion, but just as Cynthia mentioned about having public restrooms along the trail, but it's all about how late it's open, when the gates could be closed, hours of operations, but most of the townships now are doing the public restrooms. You know, and a water fountain, all that kind of stuff, same stuff as this, only new, and then it's just shut down at dusk and then open again on weekends during the day.
Mhm.
But there's nobody there, there's nobody in the office, there's nobody manned, some around a police station or a public works building, but there's several now that are built.
Mhm.
I'm sure Chris has experience with that, though.
Yeah, it's not uncommon.
No, it's actually quite common.
I'll just throw one other thing out there for discussion. There is an additional grant opportunity this year from DCNR. There was a supplemental round as a result of the new infrastructure bill and the COVID funding. It's due relatively soon. I think it's the 27th of October. But there is an extra grant round that's available that's not typically done from DCNR. So just throw that out there, that there is one grant opportunity that could fund something like this if you're interested.
We're interested. Free money, we're always interested.
Well, it's not free, you have to match.
Well,
You have to
even,
match.
even so,
Either that or it's in-kind services, so.
the match is free money. That's all I'm
What?
saying.
Okay, so you've gone through the work of designing something.
Concept.
You concept, usually when you do that, you do attach a basic dollar figure to it.
I haven't got that far.
No.
I'd say the building work would be a whole other estimate.
But at least building the trail, doing the parking, put up the fence. You
Yeah,
haven't.
that's not a huge, probably less than 100,000 to do all that. It's a matter of the building work that's probably.
Maybe you want to phase as far as the cost estimate, you got your initial phase and then
Yeah, I was
the
thinking.
second phase and
Mhm.
wish list to kind of, it'd be hard to put numbers to what you just talked about.
So there's no way we're gonna do a grant for the 27th of
No.
October.
No. I mean, that's more of Chris's area. He can, you have to do his guesstimates and maybe have another quick meeting to fine tune a little bit. I don't think you have to iron out everything, but
It's gonna be really difficult
it's gonna
because
be expensive and really.
the building part of it,
Yeah.
that's the difficult part. By not having a known use of your vision of what you want, it's
Right.
really gonna be difficult to get a grant because we really don't know what we want to use it for.
Mhm.
It's gonna be difficult to attract a business because you're not gonna have the parking if we're limiting.
I don't even know if we're allowed to have a
Right.
business.
Right.
So.
Too.
The restrooms are on the second floor, you said?
Yeah.
Well, there's no parking upstairs,
Yeah.
so yeah. It's a separate,
Pipes
it's a
go
whole
up there,
separate.
just move it
But
downstairs.
it's gonna be the cost. And so,
Yeah.
Well,
Well, and you have to build an ADA bat, there's a whole.
Well, that's why I'm saying if we could find a nonprofit, something like the, Peace Valley,
Yeah, but again, we
Friends.
have to find out legally what we
Right.
can and
but I'm just
we
saying.
may be
before-
required to.
Before we tear it down, there
Yeah.
should be an effort made to find a purpose for that building.
Saying the grant for planning purposes to try to answer some of the questions they just went up, or is it for actual construction?
It was for design construction,
Design
but what we had, this is a new idea that kind of came up recently.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with that. You're not ready for that.
Yeah.
grant.
I mean, so we could think about the spring rounds, if DCNR has the April round every year, we could get our ducks in a row for April, if nothing else.
I have one other question. When we were out looking at the property, you mentioned something about a trail that would be coming off, going along the woods.
Creekside Loop Trail, is that what you?
Going back into and meeting up with the main trail that he's got there.
Go back to the big, I guess here, I'll go big picture. There was discussion of a nature trail or a mulch trail.
Mhm.
I guess over,
Going out through that way, right.
That way. Again, that's not included in the grant right now.
Okay,
I envision that as literally as a nature trail. I mean, it might be something that's cleared. Or maybe some mulch put down on it as a first step. More of a walking nature trail type of loop that would connect maybe here near the parking lot and go out near the creek and loop around and connect back.
are we allowed to do something like that, since it probably wouldn't be ADA compliant?
That was the issue.
Well, you wouldn't be able to spend, grant funds on that.
I don't think we'd be
Percent.
able to do that at
So
all.
This would be,
Grant funds, no grant funds. We're opening a public accommodation. It's gotta be,
well, this would be your ADA compliant trail. So
Right.
you would have that accessibility, but this piece would not be. So you might get a
Okay.
little bit of pushback on that end. But if you
but
have
that's
some-
not envisioned in this.
No,
No, I think
stage.
we left it out right now, because I think DC and our other folks had some concerns about that as well, and just the cost and time and everything else. We were trying to just close this gap right now.
Correct.
That's the main goal right now. That, again, maybe phase 2, phase 3, we could do the nature trail.
All right, so section 3 and 4, I guess. You have anything to talk about those two?
Oh, I know.
2 and 3.
We'll just keep moving on, yeah. There's some large trees in the other part of the woods that we'd like to just avoid. So we'll be working, through that when we get closer out to the creek and actually laying out the specific alignment of the trail. So there might be a couple of wiggles in there to try to avoid some of the larger trees. Again, another view of the old farm road, and then connecting to the existing trail out by the berm that was constructed in the other phase. So just next steps, again, our goal is to try to wrap up the design and the planning this fall. Get our permit submission in later this year. One of the other steps that we need to do is sit down with Ryan and his folks, talk about which pieces will be done by Public Works, and if there's anything that needs to be bid out in the spring, and if so, we put together that bid package in the spring, and hopefully start construction the spring, summer of next year. Assuming that we get our permit in a timely manner, which we're anticipating we will. But yeah, so we're hoping to move forward with construction next summer.
Great.
Any other questions? Cynthia?
No other questions.
Do we have anybody else in attendance via Zoom?
Moving on.
Is there any public comment? All right,
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
very good. Procedurally,
Yeah.
do we want to? We'll do Marshall Circle and Circle Drive, and then do we want to let the land development go, because they've had to sit here through?
I think that would be good.
Okay, so next on the agenda is the Marshall Circle Drive update.
So if I could, while Mr. Jones gets set up, we also have distributed hard copies of another project that Mr. Jones would like to address the board and get some feedback on. And I'll let him go through the details with you today. But I've asked Mr. Jones to come and give us an update on last year's Marshall Circle planting and where we are moving for the Circle Drive restoration. And then he'd like to talk about planting some trees at the Circle Drive location.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Forgive me for my croaky throat, yeah. So as Matt mentioned, I wanted to just provide the board with an update on the Marshall Circle project, which we executed in the spring this year. That was funded by the Giant Supermarket grant, and it involved basically in late April, we planted 41 trees in that area, in that parcel that has both a base and kind of a drier area. And in late May, we went back and planted a couple of hundred plugs of native sedges and ground covers. So over the summertime, we watered all of those trees during that long dry spell that we had. And in mid-October, basically in a couple of weeks, we'll be going back and planting 18 more trees in that area. So far, everything is looking good. We always expect to lose some trees. It's normal. So we'll check again in the spring next year. But in terms of ongoing maintenance for that area, if we have long dry spells, we'll be back and make sure we water those trees. But beyond that, nature is progressing. Something that excites plant geeks like me is that since we've stopped mowing, we've seen 3 native grasses pop up. They've always been there, but they've just been mowed. So that's pretty exciting for us. We'll also be going back and just over time incrementally adding flowering plants into that area, just to kind of give some aesthetic beauty. So if there are any questions on that, that's basically the info that I wanted to provide you on the Marshall. So
Thank you.
Ryan, do you have,
Thank you.
how's all this working?
Good. That's for us to maintain.
Is it helping?
I mean, Marshall Circle and a large catch basin to maintain, but I mean, if he wants to naturalize it, I'm all for it.
Craig, how's this all doing, helping us out in any way?
Actually, I don't think so.
Well, this one doesn't because it's not in our MS4 plan, which is why we wanted to use it as a test, just to see how it works.
Yeah.
Right?
But yeah, larger scale projects like this, yeah, that's.
So if I can add, it will help us at least because it's public involvement. It will show that we are incorporating the public into some of our efforts. So it will help us in those areas, not necessarily giving us the township credit for stormwater work, but
Right.
it will show that we're working with the community.
Very cool.
I'm sure that it's helping us by beautifying certain areas and cutting down on the mowing and the man time so they can be doing other projects. And if it's replicated, it's certainly going to show an effect going forward, not to mention the effect to nature, the bees, the pollinators and the insects and the birds and everyone up the food chain.
absolutely, yeah. So so the next item was just to mention, to remind everybody that we have another project planned in the Circle Drive Basin. That's a larger area. That's 50 trees that we are also being funded by the giant grant. We won it a second time. So we'll be planting 50 fairly large canopy trees in that area, including the kind of the meadow area, which was that little project that we executed together maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So there's no change in plan for that. That'll be a springtime activity next year. The last item that I wanted to mention, and you have some information in front of you, is the 10 million, the Keystone 10 million trees partnership has made available to our program, the Master Workshop program, 1,000 free trees. And so I'm on the committee that's organizing the implementation of those trees. And so I'm proposing that we plant 100 trees in this area. I hope you guys have seen it on the map. This is it's part of the Circle Drive Basin parcel, that open space parcel. So it's a fairly dry area. It's sort of an upland area. So there's a series of species that I've listed there, and they're looking to do this in the fall. This is kind of a bit of a manna from heaven situation. There's no guarantee that we'll get free trees, this many in the future, but since we have them, I thought that we could implement them in the township. So that's what I'm proposing. And as I've said here, the small container sized trees, they'll come with tubes. Our volunteer community will do the installation of the trees. And then over the next 2 years, we'll water and weed and make sure that, they have as good of a shot of growing as we can. And in some small way, this might be a little bit of an offset to the trees that are going to be cut down nearby, as a function of that development. It's happening near the dollars. So in terms of the township, the only expectation we have is that we would no longer mow that area. So we need to look at those for back here. That's correct. That's sort of big space on the right there. So that's it. That's all I wanted to present to you guys. Or if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So my questions are more directed to professionals and staff. If this area is being proposed to be just turned into a woodlands, why wasn't that done a long time ago? Why have we always maintained it? Was the original intent for that to actually be a passive recreational area for Circle Drive? Like, are we taking the original intent of that field? That's what I'm asking, like,
You're
what,
going back 30 years. I don't think
like,
anyone
why,
cared.
why did we just never let it go natural to begin with? Does anyone know?
Probably because trees cost money.
Yeah, but it had to be cleared in the first place.
Back in the day, that was the original design here, I have plenty of concrete low flow channels, there was no removal. So
Right.
to be honest with you, it's just how things have changed, and next topic is touching that.
Right.
How DEP looks at it, and how your ordinances look at it.
But there's nothing in the development agreements from back then that say this was
Oh.
supposed to be passive recreational space for the
That I don't
residents
know.
of.
That's something.
That's what I wanted, that's what I'm trying to figure out, like, why have we spent all this money for all these years? When we could have let it go as a natural field and eventually trees would have grown on their own. I love the project, I love the concept, I just want to make sure we're not,
This is quite common now.
okay,
Just save money.
gotcha.
That question has been asked. and
Well,
I don't have an answer.
somewhere in our archives, there has to be the development plans.
Right.
Yes, that
We
would
hope.
show and list,
Right,
you know, why that piece of ground was left like it was.
yeah, because the basin
It was-
obviously,
Open space.
yeah,
That's what you did with open space.
It wasn't
Most of your
wasn't
MS
built on.
Yeah, most of your new MS4 projects, which you gonna get into this for next year, we just submitted your permit, but we need a list of, this is quite common of conversions of existing facilities to naturalized basins, facilities to save money
right,
and to check off a lot of other boxes that I'm just the engineer, but there's other angles to that for just for beautification.
Mhm.
Water
So-
infiltration.
Yeah, there's so many other benefits and it saves money. So,
yeah, I mean, is there a Circle Drive homeowners association? Do you guys have
Mm-hmm.
an association? No, so then.
well, that-
I just want to make sure we're not okaying something that's, gonna
No,
cause a
actually,
problem.
This has actually been done quite a bit now. We're probably catching up on something like this, correct? The next step is your no mow zones that you
Right.
haven't touched on, where all of a sudden all areas are not mowed. And that's where residents, tall grass, that's a whole other issue, but naturalized basins is a great projects to do, and most municipalities are doing. it.
Greg,
Yes, Cynthia, goodness gracious.
so I was trying to work a spot to come in. If you look at the map, the
Yes,
part, Mike, if you can just pull up the map again, please. If you look where the red part is, if you
Yes.
look to the right, the border on the right,
Yes.
that is also part of the Circle Drive parcel of open space.
okay,
So it's not just the mown part is part of the Circle Drive open space. It does include some wooded section.
right.
So it would be just,
And nobody uses that area as part of Circle Drive for recreation at all?
we have had ATVs go in through there.
Well, I mean,
Um,
like kids playing.
No, that's it. Kids from Boulder Avenue have come over with their ATVs. People walk their dogs out there, but that's become very rare. I have not seen many people out there at all anymore. So,
Okay, all right.
Is that all owned by the township?
So from my recollection, this area that you're proposing to plant the trees, really, there is a significant topography change. And that it is, you can see it on the map among the Google Maps. And you can see, there's a really active swale that runs from Erie Ave, the end of Erie Ave, all the way to that naturalized basin at the bottom. But
Mhm.
really, none of that water is making its way up. It's all getting channelized down.
Mhm.
And just the water sucking ability of trees are so
Right.
much more significant than the current grass. That I think it's a
Well-
really good, from a staffing standpoint, I'm talking to Ryan Pressman about it. We think it's a really good idea. It's just, we want to continue to minimize the areas that we're continuing to mow. Just from a staffing standpoint, we dedicate a lot of our time in the summer months to mowing that we could be doing better things than that. So it checks a lot of boxes for staff.
I
Okay.
just want to mention that what you refer to as a swale. I've walked the property. It's really not a swale. I have a swale in my backyard. It's shaped, it's remains grassed. This is more like a man-made creek. The water's diverted that way, but it's any which way, and there's you know, rivulets going down, and it's not contained in one area. And I think perhaps we should send our engineer out there at some point, because combined with the Spatolas, the county builders development, that runoff is coming down from the TD Bank plot. And that's really why the area was made supposedly into a swale, which has been undone by nature. That stormwater runoff will probably increase somewhat with the county builders program, and we'll take a look at that to see if we need to do anything to improve it, or
Stormwater doesn't increase because they have to keep all the flow of, on their own property.
I've
They
heard
can't-
that, although I've experienced different, so that's why I'm concerned.
Some residents came and complained about that swale, showed me pictures. I believe Cynthia has talked to me in the past about it. It's not really tied to any project anymore, so it's one of those things where public works and then we can talk about it. I know there's issues out there. I guess it's changed over time. Originally that was part of, and there's still a pad site in the back there. And if they ever came in, I was gonna have them
Take care of that.
take care of it, but we haven't had that opportunity, so. But it's something that should be looked at, I agree.
I think it's runoff from that and from that little stub of Erie Avenue back there.
Things have changed and it's.
Well, one of the things is
I think
if that
it's-
pad site is still never been developed, they haven't finished the stormwater technically, right?
Someone was complaining that maybe the basin in the back.
Good point.
TD Bank was not functioning.
Yeah.
So, it's just who starts that process. I think it should start.
I don't care who
Public Works,
starts
that
it.
we
Public Works can, I'm sure Ryan's happy to get another job. On
Well, if
the
he doesn't
list.
have to mow this area anymore.
Yeah.
All right. Any other
Great.
questions?
Thank
from
you
the
very
board?
much, Mr. Jones.
Hold on. Is any other
Oh.
questions from the board?
No.
Anybody? Well, Cynthia, Cynthia, do you have any other questions?
Well, I was going to say, what is the next step? Do we have to approve this project? What's the ask at this moment?
Well, we have 100 trees to put in the ground, and we'd like to do that
And it's rained.
soon. So it's really a request to be approved to go forward with that.
I think a simple motion by the board today would be appropriate.
I make the motion to approve the project proposed by Mr. Jones and the master watershed stewards, and to take advantage of 100 free trees.
I'm fine with us moving forward with the motion, but I want our legal to please, because we have to make sure that if they're accessing and bonded insurance, all that kind of fun stuff, are we good?
I mean, you can make a motion to approve the planned project. And it is subject to any issues that would come up, and we deal with it among staff and bring it back to the board if necessary.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's no reason to not approve it as a
No,
motion.
that's what I mean. I just
Yeah.
want to hear you.
No, you're fine. Subject to any additional issues of engineering or anything like that, we can move forward.
Okay.
I'll make a second to that. Okay.
I'm gonna have first and a second. Any other comments or questions? Any public comment? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Before you guys come up, we're gonna take like a 3-minute quick little break.
I just switched stuff around anyway.
The donut.
Amazing.
Darn, you weren't
Lays
supposed to say
croissants.
that.
You gotta try one of the, like, oh, you're eating. You gotta try one.
Saw my window and I said, no, I know.
No, I'm glad. Retiring, because I think we have two new attorneys, Craig and Craig here, who are gonna help us out. You deal with so many attorneys at this point anyway, right? So, yeah, yeah.
Some good ones too.
My goal, Ryan, is to have you guys mowing half of what you used to mow by the time I leave office. So start thinking of all those projects you want to start getting done in. Did you submit your wall idea, by the way, to as part of the capital improvement plan? Remember you wanted to replace the railroad tie wall or something you have at Public Works with those
Yeah, that was what, last year?
Yeah.
Years ago? I think it was last year, proposed that.
and it never,
No, it I think the first year it got shut down. We were in the middle of COVID. So I'm not mistaken.
different time now. No, I'm wondering, did you submit that as part of your request for capital improvement or?
It's in the capital plan inventory. It just did not.
I was gonna say, I don't think
Okay,
it was in there, but it never,
didn't
it
come to
wasn't
that.
like a top priority.
You just have to unmute it if you wanted to say the session.
I need to get my pen on my mic today.
Oh, yeah.
Right. This thing won't take too long. This might. Okay. So maybe.
I think that's a lot of there.
On that part.
You next. Too little straw. That's not back yet, so I'm some more coffee.
I can see what it means about.
Black and white. So I probably 8 hours later. Yeah. But I told her, you know, we might get like this versus this.
Actually, I can't drink the straw.
You can't drink your own
I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it.
Grapefruit orange juice with the donut?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And
I'm one of those rare people that has a glass of orange juice with cereal. Milk and OJ.
Yeah, I can't do. I don't know why.
Are we ready? Everyone back? Oh, no, wait, no, we don't have a solicitor present. We need him.
I think so.
Somebody want to go get Sean?
No.
Making a lunch. Exec session.
Yourself.
Not when you're eating it during a meeting.
Well, I can eat my dinner in peace then.
Maybe you can catch his eye and wave him in.
This is one way to get the bulb hours up. Come on.
No, we were before you before for Independence Lane. Do you guys recall being there? We can't remember being here for this project, so that's why I was just asking.
You came with a concept and then went right to zoning.
Before your zone. That's what.
Okay.
And you went to the planning commission again after. So you were planning commission for.
Yes,
your second,
all right, so it was about a year ago, probably.
I forgot we wrote a sketch plan.
Yeah.
because of the variances.
Yeah. All right. He was saying that, I was like, I just don't, it runs together with 180 New Britain, and I just don't remember talking to you about it.
I'll get him.
Every time I try to get it, he like moves farther and farther to the other side of the door.
3 minutes is not 15. Right?
Why not?
Well, that's all right. All right, so we are moving to subdivision land development projects informational only right now. And then once we're done this, we will go back to our presentation items. So the only item on our agenda today for subdivision land development is 141 Independence Lane. If you'd like to please tell us who you are and go ahead.
All right. I'm Kim Fosnot from Ritu Associates. I have Andy Miller from 101 Independence Lane Associates, who's the applicant. We were before you for sketch plan, previous before going to zoning hearing board. So you are somewhat familiar with this plan. The building shrunk a little bit, based on what you had seen previously. I think we were at 90 or 92,000 when we were before you previously. But it actually is at 88,250 square feet. But basically the general layout remains the same. So as you're aware, this is located at 141 Independence Lane, which is the last developable lot in the New Britain Business Park. There's two existing basins, one up here and then the southern basin right here, which are regional for the business park. We are proposing 53 parking spaces on the northern side of the building and 15 loading docks on the southern, with one drive-in ramp to access the building. We'll have a roll-up door. There is, per our zoning hearing board decision, there is a fire lane that is against the back side of the building. That's what caused the building square foot reduction. And this has been reviewed and approved by the fire marshal. We also are proposing a retaining wall that will preserve the wetlands. The wetlands will not be impacted as a result of this project because everything actually drains this way. You know, this is downslope of those, so there's no anticipated direct impacts to those wetlands. Your ordinance requires a 25-foot wetland margin. We are encroaching into that wetland margin, but you allow up to 20%, and we are under that 20% encroachment for the construction of this wall here. As I mentioned, we were before a zoning hearing board. We received 3 variances, one for the building height. It's a 42-foot building, where the ordinance requirement is 35 feet. The other would be the reduction of parking. We're at 53 spaces where 177 would be permitted. And the third variance was for the parking within 20 feet of the building. We're actually at 9.3 feet. So that they were all approved at the zoning hearing board. Contingent upon providing that fire access lane around the back. We are proposing subsurface stormwater basins that will go into the existing basins. We received the letter from Gilmore Associates, and basically it came down to 7 drafting comments, 4 ADA or landscaping comments, and 13 stormwater comments. The rest were all administrative. A lot of those stormwater comments related to that existing basin, which we had to clear out. They haven't been maintained for a number of years, so there was a lot of mature growth. There's a lot of weeds that were over 6 feet tall. So we went in there. It took a little bit of time. The northern basin actually was quite dry, so there was no issue. That was actually maintained pretty quickly. This southern basin has been wet as far as I can go back in aerial, so that required a lot more pumping and then letting it dry out so they could actually get in there and clear it out. In doing that, clearing that out, we were able to actually maintain or access some structures that we previously were not able to get to because they were underwater. So the outlet structure we were able to access and actually get inverts on that. And then there was a few other structures within the basin bottom that we were able to get. We are processing that data, and then we're going to take a look at how to get this basin functioning properly. So a lot of the review comments that related to stormwater are also related to that as well. Also in our submission, we had 7 waiver requests, and all of those
I
waivers.
have to stop you for a second. Where's the Gilmore letter for
It's
us?
all in SharePoint.
Yeah, but our packet, like where? Normally that would be in our packet, where I would like to be referencing what she's talking about. Where is that?
It was in the email that was sent last week. There was a link for 141 Independence with all of the material. that
So
was sent in.
separate, a separate email. Okay. All right. I'll look for that one then. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Do you want me to wait until you find it? Or?
No, it's fine.
All right, so yeah, the letter is actually dated September 21st, 2022. In that letter, we had 7 waiver requests. And I'll step through those waiver requests with you now. The first one, do you need the section numbers or do you just want me to?
No, it's fine. Go
highlight
ahead.
What we're looking for, okay.
Just hire.
First one is preliminary plan. We're requesting to combine those into a preliminary final plan to expedite that process. There are no stormwater improvements that are within the development, and we will not have any impact on the township roadways or infrastructure. This is something that Gilmore is recommending. They're supporting this waiver request. The second one is for the datum. This was similar to the request that we had for 180 New Britain.
Thank you.
This is similar to the one that we had for 180 New Britain. We have it on benchmark elevation NAVD 88, where the ordinance requires Chalfont New Britain Township Joint Sewer Authority vertical datum. There wasn't any issues when we went through this with 180 New Britain, but that's standard practice, the datum that we're currently using. The third one is requiring mill and overlay for Independence Lane. We're requesting a waiver for this. Currently, the paving that exists out there has some signs of structural issues. So in milling and overlaying this, it would basically just be adding a surface, pretending like it's okay, but underneath you're not addressing actually what's going on. So when we discussed this with Gilmore and the PC, we thought that it would the money better be served with the 50% match that's or the 50% fee in lieu of going towards those pavement repairs rather than just mill and overlaying it. And that way you have funds set up for that. So that was a request reviewed by the Planning Commission and also Gilmore, and they are recommending there is no issues with that. The fourth one would be the community impact assessment report. Our justification for this not providing this is this was already within a proposed subdivision that was reviewed by the municipality. It's an industrial use, which already was anticipated when they had previously looked at this development. So we are requesting that we waive the requirement to provide this. I believe in Gilmore's review letter, they had mentioned that one of the bigger things that they look for is the traffic, and we had done a traffic impact assessment. And in the review of that, they would recommend granting a waiver for this section. The fifth waiver would be requiring concrete monuments. We will set missing property corners with concrete monuments, but we're requesting a waiver to provide concrete monuments on all the easements. We have stormwater easements out there. We also have conservation easements out there. So we're requesting, in lieu of providing concrete monuments, that we could provide the iron pins that you would see typically for easements and things like that. Once again, Gilmore had no issues with that. And it was just due to the sheer number and also the location of some of them, because some of them are within paving. Not the conservation easement, but some of the stormwater easements are within paving. Required grass strip between curb and sidewalk. Originally, when we were before the planning commission, we were requesting a curb and sidewalk waiver. Obviously, the curbing is already existing, so we weren't really requesting that. But it was for the sidewalk to provide this, because really there's only sidewalk on the northern side of Independence Lane. It ends right at this driveway here. And then there's nothing around the bulb of it. But in conversation with Gilmore and the planning commission, they weren't inclined to approve this waiver. So we had added sidewalk. And actually part of Gilmore's review letter would be to add one more ADA ramp here, which is at the corner of our property. So that way, if they continue, there's something to continue on with. So we added that sidewalk based on feedback from the planning commission. But there is a section in this Aldo that requires a 3 to 6 foot grass planting strip between the curb and the sidewalk. We're requesting a waiver of that just due to the space that we have within the right of way. And then also when we get around here where our existing basin is cutting up into that basin, grading, it makes it a little bit easier to be closer to the curb line there. And just staying within the right of way where we don't own the property frontage. Okay, and the last one is the illumination levels. The minimum for non-residential parking, loading facilities, and drive for industrial uses shall be a minimum of 4.1 average minimum ratio. So this is the uniformity ratio. And this is something we had gone back and forth with Gilmore, their lighting reviewer, on a number of scenarios. And this actually just relates to the loading dock. We meet the minimum ratio for the parking and the driveways in. The problem we are facing with the loading docks is with the 20-foot height, your pole, that's your maximum height. We weren't able to get the uniformity ratio on basically the interior of the loading docks. We tried a number of things. If we increase the pole heights, we're actually spilling over into the property, the neighboring property. So that wasn't desirable. And we looked at other options. We could add floodlights, but that's also not a permitted use. So basically, after exhausting all the possibilities, we decided that we were going to go for a waiver for the uniformity ratio. And also we talked with the applicant, and they are fine with the lighting levels that are proposed for the site. It ends up the interior of the loading docks have a little less lighting levels than the exterior, but based on review, they are fine with the lighting levels proposed on our plan. So those are the question waivers.
Just to be clear, that waiver is unrelated to the loading areas as indicated in our letter, not the part.
So those are our waivers.
I wanted to add, before we're discussing it, there's also up under zoning, woodlands disturbance, they've agreed to pay the fee in lieu of. That was discussed, Township Planning Commission. Not sure if we discussed it with the sketch plan, but There's a couple in zoning, there will comply, and then the one, item 2 under zoning is, they've agreed to pay the fee in lieu of, there's no other place to plant trees on this site, so. Again, I mentioned that earlier in the meeting, maybe that's projects like this, that funds, can go towards park projects.
Where are there, well, this is this is the industrial park, correct? Where are there woodlands on these sites?
The woodlands, so basically
Yeah,
this site has been used as a dump site
Okay.
for the entire property, so there's kind of low
Phil-
scrub.
Phil site, they'll call it.
I'm sorry. There's dump and fill, there you go. So basically the interior of the lot has been shaped, so there's steeper slopes, but it's basically for them to bring the imported fill. So they had some lower shrubs and some weeds that are very high that are in here. But basically your woodlands are really the edge of the property.
Okay.
There's no significant.
I don't understand why there would be woodlands on a pre-planned industrial site. Okay.
Well, there are woodlands on
There are some there.
the northern
Yeah.
and the southern, so they creep in to our portions of the site, but along the edges is where the conservation needs would be to provide that buffer.
And as Kim mentioned, we support the waivers that are requested. This is the nice process. We went through a sketch plan. They've been at planning commission twice. They gave us direction on both sides. We worked it out with staff. Public Works got involved a little bit on the middle overlay of the road. The sidewalk was another big one. They obviously asked for a waiver. Planning commission pushed back. We did too. So again, sometimes you get these letters and they're clean and everything's resolved, but the process worked where, and they've been very nice to work with. Connecting the sidewalk off-site. So I just want to point out that's off-site. They've agreed to do that. They're willing to pay the fee in lieu of woodlands, and they're cleaning up 2 basins that have not been touched. There's another point where those basins been there before they came along. They're willing to clean those up. A page and a half of the comments, as I mentioned at planning commission meeting, are related to those basins that if you took that out and said, hey, it's not ours, we're not, because someone else owns those.
That's correct. Yeah, we have the property under contract right now, and for the cleanup of those basins and everything, we've been working with the property owner to make sure he addresses them and gets them to the satisfaction of the township. In the wild event that we don't pursue and develop the site, at least he's getting his basins in compliance. We needed him a little bit more in compliance just so we could go out there and do survey and understand what was in them and buried by 6 feet of water.
And I want to thank you for that, because that's, they've gone way above and beyond. If this project doesn't move forward, there's a lot of expense on their end and delay with the, working out the technical part. So someone planning commission mentioned there were so many comments in the letter. To be honest with you, everything, all the planning's done. It's just they got to clean up the basin and work that out technically. But and again, it's the last developed lot, so a community assessment report really wasn't needed. There was no information in there that was going to warrant this layout to be any different. Again, the last lot. So I like when projects go this way, where they, we've got feedback early on. They've addressed, we work things out, and it's ready for your approval. I don't have any other comments. The fire marshal did a review September 14th. He has a couple of minor comments. That's the second review. They've agreed to those already made those changes. So they'll be ready. I guess they're going to be scheduled for your next meeting for action.
I guess I have a question for you, Craig, more than for the applicants. What concrete monuments, are we talking about something above ground, or are these the little squares that sit on the ground?
No, they're 18 inches in the
Yeah,
ground.
they're in the ground.
But
They might
they
have
stick
an inch
up.
or two.
They get hit by mowers. They're quite expensive, so unless it's our easement or something that we want public. it's a very
Well, we just get back to, this is nothing really to do with you, but we get back to the question we've come up over and over again about somehow marking off conservation easements.
Yeah,
Clearly. And neither a pin nor a concrete monument is going to do that. So it still remains unanswered. Do you back up to any residential properties on?
No.
No, it's all industrial. Okay. That was my only question.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have anything, sir?
I have nothing, sir.
Staff?
Nothing.
Board, any other questions or comments for the applicant?
No.
Yeah, let me do up here. Cynthia, do you have anything?
No, I do not.
Public comment? All right, so how would the board like to proceed? Would we like our solicitor to do draft
Resolution.
a resolution?
I would concur with that.
Do you need a formal vote or?
Not to ask me to do the resolution. No,
Okay.
You'll vote on it when you want the resolution.
Okay,
It will be preliminary final, one of the ways to support that planning commission at their September 27th meeting, voted 4-0 to support preliminary final.
okay. All right, thank you very much.
So then we'll be, just to confirm, we'll be back on the 17th.
I believe that's our next meeting, yes.
You don't, we can talk all the time, but you don't need to do anything. If you want to be here, that's fine, but it's just the adoption of resolutions.
We'll have someone here. I don't know who that player will be yet.
We need to work with
Yeah.
his office on the resolution.
Kristen will work with you.
Oh, okay.
Solicitor.
Yeah, I'll do it. And Andy, I'll reach out again before that meeting to let you know everything. It's good to go for that again.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. You have a great day.
Okay.
Take care. Anybody need any breaks? We're good? All right. Next item on the agenda, we're gonna go back to presentation items. We are under presentation items, item C, zoning amendment, PADEP mandated stormwater update. Who's gonna take charge of that one?
Thank you. Actually, I presented this as part of your stormwater management update you required for the solicitor. Two of the comments. Janine was trying to be sneaky and sneak some zoning comments in your stormwater update, and the solicitor said, hey, they have to be done separately, and I agreed with that. So there are two, I promised the board, I'm speaking louder because Cynthia said she can't hear me, so hopefully she can hear me now. There's two updates we're proposing. We're working with the solicitor's office to prepare that amendment. So this is just to present it, and then your next meeting will be the authorization to advertise that zoning amendment ordinance update. There'll be two sections. The first one is not related to DEP's requirements. That is something that we've struggled with for years. I think even before the omnibus was adopted years ago, large properties related impervious coverage and stormwater management. And it actually relates to a little bit of how some of these large properties you've seen with conservation easements. It's not related to easements, but if they want to build a pool accessory structure, gets kicked into stormwater management, it's not a small project. They have to design the stormwater basin for the entire impervious existing on their property. And you can imagine a large property that gets quite expensive. Turns out the stormwater facilities cost more as far as design, construction, review than the actual project of building accessory pole barn. So staff had recommended this years ago. We finally have a chance now to do a zoning amendment. The prior board and solicitor, we had already worked this out. We're just removing the requirement that you have to design for all existing impervious. The stormwater ordinance still says if there's a drainage problem, you must address it. I always have that authority to recommend improvements on the drainage problem. So that's one comment. The other amendment would be to your riparian buffer requirement. DEP actually has a whole section of riparian buffers in their model ordinance, but you already have that in zoning. So we couldn't amend that. There's one section I'll just point out about native species versus invasive species. I strengthened up the language. I think one of the board members mentioned, I think you did, about where practical and all this, instead of saying shall or must, there was a little loose. So we strengthened up that language to say that riparian buffer easement shall be planted with native species, and invasive species shall be removed wherever practical. Obviously, it's hard when it's a large plot of land to remove every single species, but that they're required to plant native species in the buffer requirement. So that was a recommendation DEP. That's not our language, but we did make it a little stronger.
And this is the stormwater amendment.
Yeah, so
Okay.
these are your two, as I promised you, we did stormwater first. Now these are your two zoning amendments related to stormwater. We'll have other amendments I think staff will work on probably. Now's not a good time with that in the budget, but we have a couple other ones related to fence permits and other things. We'd like to maybe do this in smaller pieces for you, so you can just, instead of a big omnibus, And I think that was the direction of the board at the beginning of the year. So those are the two updates for your amendment, and if you're okay, then Solicitor's office will prepare that for your next meeting for formal action. For authorization to advertise,
Oh, yeah, okay,
and then you'll vote on that
right.
probably in November.
Okay.
Yes,
Got it.
that's all.
Makes sense.
Very good. Next item on the agenda, item D, 2023 budget update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have about a 45-minute presentation I'd like to give tonight or this morning. That'll go into tonight. That was a joke. I don't have much more to update since we've been meeting with the board last week. Nothing has changed since Friday. I'm looking forward to meeting with Supervisor McCabe in hopefully this week to discuss the budget.
Yeah, hopefully.
And does the board have any questions about any of the budget requests from departments?
How are you continuing to look into the future revenue?
Yes, and so I've asked the townships earned income tax
Collector.
there it is, thank you. To provide an estimate per household of what an EIT, average EIT would be, so we can look at in 2024. I don't anticipate a lot of new housing developments in 2023. 2024 is really when they're going to start coming online, so that is in process
And
also.
Nicole, our tax collector as well for real estate.
Yes.
All right.
That's a monthly, we get the reports every month, and the total average assessment has been going up about $300,000 a month. So
Okay, very good. So any other questions in regards to the budget?
Nope.
Cynthia?
No questions.
There must be a lag.
There must be a lag.
There must be a lag.
I forget to unmute myself.
Gotcha.
Uh,
All right, very good. Next item on the agenda, we are moving to 6 zoning hearing board applications. Well, I mean, we'll start with A 105 Sugar Bush Court, and then B is 1100 Horizon Circle. I don't know if you want to just.
Sure. Mr. Chair, the 105 Sugar Bush Court is an applicant requesting 2 variances. One having to do with the impervious surface ratio. The current ratio, the set ratio would be 25%. They're requesting 29.7%. The second request is to allow a rear yard setback of just over 31, about 31 feet, where the 40-foot setback is required. In discussions with the township engineer and township staff, the solicitor's office believes that this is one that we should just let go through zoning and sort of stay laissez-faire and see what the zoning hearing board does. We're not recommending any intervention at this time.
All right, very good. Is the board in concurrence?
yes.
All right. The second application that's on your agenda is for 1100 Horizon Circle. That applicant is seeking a number of variances that's located in the High Point office campus. The applicant has submitted an application to zoning and was denied due to insufficient information, and then has submitted the zoning hearing board application. They're seeking a number of variances, all from section 305, the use variances of the property, including that a minimum of 20% of the site shall be suitable and developed for passive recreation, including outdoor seating areas and pedestrian walks, and shall be encircled by a 6-foot fence. They're seeking a variance from that, as well as subsection B3, adequate provision shall be in place to protect residents and secure the premises. This should include a secure fence along a lot line abutting or arterial corridor street. They are, a part of their request, they're requesting a variance from the days and hours of operation, but that's still up in the air because their stated days or hours of operation would fall within our ordinance. So we're not sure if that's going to happen or not, but that's within their application. They have also sought a variance from our zoning requirement that they first go through the Department of Aging's permitting process to actually obtain a permit. This is all for a planned adult daycare center at that location. Our zoning ordinance requires that they first have that permit, and they're seeking to do that in reverse and get a variance from that. And
get zoning approval first and then go get their permit. Finally, they're seeking a variance from the requirement that they have sufficient facilities for passenger loading and unloading and a drop-off area and automobile stacking lane to be provided. Given the number of variances requested, the nature of the variances requested, and the nature of the property and the surrounding properties, the solicitor's office, after consultation with the engineer and with township staff, does believe that the township should intervene to oppose the requested variances, and I would be recommending that.
And I will add to that, two of them, what I consider significant variances is the 20% passive recreation. I understand based on their response, and I've worked on this project or on this application with the zoning officer since it started. They said they're keeping everything. There will be no outside activities. They will not be allowed outside. That's very difficult to control. Although they could state all that, a different user may come in and say, hey, I'm a permitted use and I would like to have some outside seating areas for people, whatnot. So it's an existing building. So this isn't a new construction, which is probably the biggest issue. This site was not developed or approved for this type of use. So I think the 20% is significant for this use. The fencing is probably the bigger issue. And then also, this building was not laid out for loading, unloading, drop off basically. And they're asking for a variance to not have that. I think that's another significant one that would impact the other tenants that are in this building. I think there's a couple of vacant parts of the building, but based on my review of the approved plans, it was approved as an office building, general office building. It was not contemplated for this type of use. There's also some discrepancy, although not technically related to zoning, of how the land development project was approved for this lot. It appeared to be part of a business campus use, and daycare is not permitted as far as that goes. I haven't looked at that further, but regardless of that issue, just the variances alone, as the solicitor said, I support opposing this application for those reasons.
I agree.
I concur.
I agree.
Does staff have anything to add? Nope. I agree as well. Cynthia?
I do too.
You should have, if you're going to authorize the solicitor to intervene, we should actually have a vote of a motion.
Okay, I'll take a motion at this point
I'll make that motion that we intervene in this zoning matter,
in opposition.
opposition.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I would just like to add that I think it's beneficial maybe if that's communicated to the applicants. A lot of times they will withdraw or try to have a staff meeting to work out some of the issues or try to address your concerns as well. But I'll the solicitor's office or the township will do that. But
I'll coordinate that with the township manager. We'll make sure we get word from you.
I think the fencing is an absolute necessity for that type of use. And outside recreation.
All right. Next item on the agenda is information items, departmental updates, administration.
Thank you. I've got one thing listed under admin this morning, and Assistant Manager Mark Walsh wants to update the board on a couple of other things. Township Solicitor Jeff Garten had forwarded the board a draft resolution for the Parks and Recreation Board, establishing the Parks and Recreation Board. I wanted to start that conversation today. There was also a letter that was along with that draft ordinance that explained some things that the board should consider, including the total number of members to that board. So I wanted to put it on the agenda to start this conversation to see which direction the board would like to take this.
Well, I'll go first.
Well, I was gonna say, does Cynthia want to go first and see
Okay.
the liaison?
I am sorry, no.
Sorry, I'm a
Uh,
little
You don't wanna
behind.
Go first or no, and as you don't. Like,
No, I'd like to stay out of this conversation for the
Right.
moment. I'm a little behind on it. I'm sorry, I have not read the resolution as of yet.
Gotcha.
I know the feeling, but I did read the resolution. And it's fine as far as it goes. I wonder about limiting the not the voting membership, but the other membership, what do we call it? The advisories to the advisory board.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm not sure it would be a good idea to limit those members because those are the people that are going to volunteer to help out.
Mhm.
And I don't want to discourage people from being a part of the meetings or a part of feeling that they're on the board or involved with the board. But I can certainly say we probably do want to limit the number of the voting members.
So I talked about this with Matt and Cynthia at breakfast, and I had a concept I wanted to present to everybody in regards to this, the creation of this ordinance establishing park and rec. So does anybody else have any generalized questions and then or comments? So at breakfast, I brought up the idea of I like let me move.
Oh,
this
yeah,
along.
that's
I like the idea of the five member board. I think it creates a defined leadership voting membership for the board. I brought up the concept at the breakfast the other day with merging all other park and recreation related boards into park and rec, having a person on the park and rec board, each individual separate advisory board, be a member of the 5-person board and lead those boards. It's almost how we've set up 300 committee, realign it to kind of, veterans will answer to park and rec. There'll be a separate chairman for veterans, but it'll be a person who's on the 5-person board, and then they'll have their subcommittee to deal and create things for. You'll have one, is in charge of other township events, however they may be delineated. You'll have a person who's, answers from park and rec is in regards to the 300 committee, that person will answer to that board, so just kind of a streamlining and maybe, a different way of doing things. 5-member board, 5 voting members. That way you don't have too many talking heads going in all different directions. And then, the advisory boards underneath of that part of it to answer directly.
so you're proposing putting veterans as an advisory board to park and rec?
They're already supposed to be.
All right, just so it's clear.
And then what else would be
Well, we
just a
need,
general park and rec advisory?
well, I don't know if
Because
we
we
want
have-
to,
Or
create
just specific to each event?
maybe specific to each event or, I don't know. It's like,
I feel like.
you have
specific to
somebody
each
who's in
event,
charge of,
not-
maybe somebody who's, maybe you have parks. You have a parks subcommittee, you have a recreation subcommittee, and then
That
you
makes more
have,
sense.
and then you have the veterans committee. Since veterans is its own established board,
Mhm.
then you have some, you have a subcommittee who's in charge of the parks. What are the visions for the parks? That's all they deal with. Some, another subcommittee that's recreation that only deals with all the recreation that we do, the Santa house, the parade, the Easter egg hunt, all that kind of fun stuff. But the chair of each of those separate committees is part of the general
So
5-person
one of the
board.
5 members of the voting board has to chair. each
Has
of
to
the
chair each of those individual. I don't know, it was, if we're trying to figure out a vision for this and how we want it to go forward,
To work better in the future.
delineation of who's in charge and who answers to who.
The only problem I've seen over all the years is the fact that with a 7-member board, it was easier to get a quorum
Mhm.
for park and rec.
Right,
And with a 5-member board, you may start having a quorum and getting quorum.
well, if you have a chairman, and then that chairman really shouldn't be a chairman of any of the subcommittees. And those subcommittee people, if they're gonna be chair of a subcommittee, need to be at every meeting. I
Or
mean,
what?
For the general meeting,
Well, I know, but
Or what? Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
that's,
yeah, I mean,
that's the problem. We have people in boards. This is really personnel. I prefer to be discussing it in exec session, but we need people to participate. If you're going to be on a committee, you need to participate.
I 100% agree. But my problem is the fact that you have people who have job responsibilities that sometimes cannot always make it, schedule wise change. And I know from all our years, we had problems sometimes getting a quorum of 4 people to come to the park and rec.
Cynthia, has there been any problem over the last 2 years with getting a quorum for the park and rec?
No, I think the only time we had a problem getting a quorum was at the last meeting. And a quorum is really only 3 members, as long as you have more than 50%. So I feel like if you, it would be the very big
Let it go forward.
exception that you would not have a quorum. I think if you sign up for a board and you know that the meeting is going to be at a certain time every month, and this goes for any volunteer position, then you make every effort to go to that meeting.
And
If
we
you
have,
can't, then that would be the exception.
and of course, you could participate by Zoom if necessary.
Well, it's true now we have that capability, whereas we didn't years ago.
I mean, we can keep a 7-person board and still do the same structure.
I don't know, I'm just,
Yeah. I don't really have strong
we-
feelings one way or the other,
I mean, we can only set the number when we get to the actual final resolution.
but I do like the structure that you have in mind, because that,
Assign a person to each special function.
Yeah.
Right, parks, recreation, and veterans.
And
And,
events.
well, recreation is events, technically.
so what happens to veterans? They're still gonna exist separately?
Yeah, it'd be a subcommittee.
Oh.
So,
I'm gonna, just asking, because questions will arise.
yes. Now the question for Matt and staff is, logistically, we start to create a staffing and or building availability issue if we have subcommittees.
Yeah.
Do those subcommittees need to have minutes? Do they have to have
Formal meetings.
formal meetings? I'm looking at Sean and Sean doesn't know I'm talking to him.
Never make,
If-
this is a litigation attorney. His eyes may not be on you, but he hears every word.
You can do it informally. If there's no quorum, they could still meet and talk. They're not prevented from meeting. They just prevented from doing any official business. They're only allowed to do the official business that you're empowering them to do with your motion in the first place.
Right.
So if all you're doing is putting this group together, this board together, in order to advise you on what they think you should do, it's not really an issue.
And with Zoom meetings, I don't think using the building is gonna be that.
Do they need to be public meetings though? Because if it's a Zoom meeting and it's not in the building,
Well, if it's a subcommittee.
If it's a subcommittee, then yeah, it should be a public.
Okay.
so then somebody needs to be.
Logistically, you could do it. That the committees meet for a half an hour before the Parks and Rec Committee.
Yeah, that's.
You know, from a
Mhm.
staffing standpoint.
Same
you can
night.
Have it all in one night.
Mhm.
You break out and have subcommittees, and then you have a subcommittee report. Maybe not all subcommittees need to meet every month.
Mhm.
Maybe you have a rolling subcommittee, like, you know, the first one is Parks Committee. They come for a half an hour before the meeting, they meet, give a report. Next month is the Recreation and Events Committee. Same thing. Veterans, the third, so every three months, unless there's a need that arises where they meet.
Well, yeah,
Good
like the
idea.
big events, like the parade, it kind of involves all of them. So
Right.
that's going to be a general meeting.
Yep.
Topic
Yeah.
for like 3 or 4 months. I don't know.
Well,
It
and
was,
then
it was
with 7 people, then you have more people involved, so if someone's not available, I know there's certain people on.
well, the idea of creating the subcommittees, you bring more people. You
Yeah,
actually, you
Agreed.
you create more seats for more people to be involved, more voices.
I think that's a goal we need to aim for.
Mhm.
Talk to Dale Brimmer about the pumpkin painting at Fall Fest.
So. Cynthia, do you want to chime in now?
Yes, now I can chime in.
Okay.
Yeah, I do think that it sounds like a great idea. We just need to work out the logistics on how that would work. I think that's a great idea of having people meeting before the general park and rec meeting, because now that Sean's left the building, left the
he
room, I was
got
going to
pizza.
ask, I want pizza.
I'm not done with my donut yet. Wait a minute. Is that what you?
Cynthia,
All the fun stuff is happening while I'm not in the building.
I can run you a piece over after the meeting.
I'm missing out on the cool Landis donuts. That's so not fair.
I'll bring it over. We should have sent it home with Ken.
Yes. Oh, he would not touch a donut.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, back to business. I do like the concept of the meeting before the major meeting. Will this resolution only govern the actual Park and Rec board of 5 members? It does the ad hoc subcommittees have a little more freedom on when they meet, how many members they have, having minutes and things like that? Am I correct in that assumption, Sean?
The ordinance that's being proposed would create the Parks and Rec Board. If the Parks and Rec Board creates ad hoc committees in and among itself to help accomplish its missions, it sort of sets the boundaries of what they're going to do, because it's typically made up of either members of that board or other volunteers that they take. I mean, could you delve down so far as to regulate that? I suppose that you could. I guess the question I have is, why would you want to?
Oh, do we have to make it a public meeting? You said that we do.
Well, a meeting of the Parks and Rec Board
Is public.
should be public. If an ad hoc committee is meeting, if it's something that you're going to advertise and the public wants to come to, then certainly you would have to do all of those things. But if it's something that's not a separately created.
Like, we're trying to create more involvement by creating, I don't want to necessarily call them ad hoc committees.
They're
Because
subcommittees.
There's
that are
subcommittees
established
that we're
already.
trying to establish.
But subcommittees being established by whom? By you or
Yeah.
by the Parks and Rec Board?
I think by us,
Yeah,
because I
we
think
need
we
to-
want to give direction
Then I
as to what
think
they
I
want to
think
do.
that's your answer. Then I think if it's a subcommittee that's being appointed by this board, I think the safe play is to have as a public meeting.
I think it is.
We're
too.
trying to foster community involvement. And if we may have had issues with the ability of the public to become involved because of the way it's currently set up.
Then certainly it would. There's no harm in making a public meeting and advertising and all those things. The question, if I'm being asked the question, do they have to? If they're technically an advisory to this board, I think it's a good idea.
Mhm.
I mean, because we have veterans and they're supposed to be an advisory to the Park and Rec.
And if we're going down this path, I would encourage us to incorporate it into the ordinance.
Yeah.
It's an
Oh,
ordinance.
yeah, would have.
It's an ordinance, not a resolution.
Right.
This is going to be codified. So the problem is that our current ordinance refers to a Parks and Rec commission, but we have no ordinance. I can't find a resolution. We don't have any ordinance that established the Parks and Rec board. So this is an attempt to clean that up and establish it. And if the board is interested in moving forward with these committees, I encourage you to incorporate it into the ordinance, because the more you put into that ordinance, the more it shows, look, this is what we want. Now, where you go with the tasks and roles and responsibilities, I would not codify that. I would put that in a resolution that the board passes that links into the ordinance to give, you could pass that on an as need basis to give the board their direction of the Parks and Rec board, your direction of what you would like them to do and specifically. As I've been thinking about it, that's where my head is at.
So do we want to, as a board, continue to think about this for another meeting cycle? Or where is everybody
And
at?
I mean, I think we all agree that it should be separate advisory or subcommittees, I think is the better term, not necessarily advisory, subcommittees to the board.
Right.
I would like to see a resolution that incorporates that idea,
The ordinance, you mean?
an ordinance,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think
yes,
if
correct.
there's gonna be. If we're gonna do that, that should be that say that the board may from time to time establish. Or instruct that whatever. I'll leave the language. up to you.
Clarify,
I can't think right now.
clarify which board.
Board of Supervisors.
Well, make sure it's clarified in there.
Yeah,
Because Darren's part of the problem is that Park and Rec has done a lot
where
of
do
these
they
things
get their
over the years.
direction?
Yeah.
Right.
Do.
Can I,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Good.
So maybe under the part 3 of the ordinance, under organization, we could include that part of the organization includes 3 subcommittees related to Veterans Affairs,
Parks,
Parks, and Recreation. And then that way we've said that we would like those 3 areas be looked at and have people looking at those individually, but not giving them any role, clarifying the roles and responsibilities.
I think that's good, but I think
Thank you.
Bill was gonna say
Yeah, you have to leave it open for a possible future
Yeah,
area and
that's
other.
such
items
other
that may-
Other
committees
subcommittees.
Right.
as the Board of Supervisors may. offer,
Yes, agreed.
Whatever.
to facilitate the exchange of ideas. Do we want to, as a board, encourage there to not be multiple chairs of multiple committees?
I don't think that needs to be part of the ordinance.
Okay.
I mean, we're already establishing that it's a 1-year term. They have to be reelected each year.
Right. Okay.
The chair people.
Yeah,
Yeah, because what 5
they
years?
would reorganize each year. So, I mean, that,
Do you think a 5-year term is too long? It might. Is that what it is currently?
this ordinance says a 1 year.
Yeah, that membership is 5 years.
Oh,
5
okay,
years,
but the
not
officers would
one
be,
Every, only one opening every year.
Right.
So when you would establish it, it would be. a
what is it
rolling-
now? Is it 5 years from now or?
It is 5 years.
Is
That's
it?
what I
Okay.
saw. Yeah.
So committees.
That's fine.
Mike and I've been coordinating on that. How about Parks and Open Space Committee? Recreation and Events Committee and Veterans Committee.
I think that works.
I don't know that we want to put open space in with parks. I prefer that they take a look at our parks and
Park
Recommend-
facilities.
the existing parks and planning upcoming parks, or like the Coleman property and Cotton Park. I think open space needs to be separate from parks. Because what are they gonna do with open
Separate item.
space?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be like a specific direction from the board to say, hey, Parks Committee, we have this 10-acre parcel of open space we'd like you to look
Mhm.
into turning into a park.
So how about open space and trails?
Parks and trails.
Well, Parks and Trails?
Parks and trails.
Yeah.
Parks and Trails?
Parks and trails.
And then Open Space Committee?
No.
Or
No,
do you wanna
open
have that-
space
you
is,
wanna have that as a
I don't
Yeah.
think, I don't
yeah,
think that would be
that's not
separate.
park and rec. Yeah, we don't, that, they don't, we're open space.
Got
Only we can spend that money.
Okay, so Parks and Trails Committee, Recreation and Events Committee, and Veterans Committee. And any other committee.
Ad hoc, those all would be ad hoc at the, pretty much, right? I mean,
Such as the Board of Supervisors may determine in the future.
well, like we may on January 1st decide to say, hey, Park and Rec, we're creating a subcommittee for the 300 committee for the year. I don't know.
No.
No,
Didn't we already?
I think
create
all of
300?
what Park and Rec is tasked to do falls in those 3.
okay,
Yeah.
You know, if they choose to have a core group that's working on the parade and a core, that's different. That's
Right.
not a formal committee. That's just the volunteers that are working on that event.
gotcha. Is everyone okay? Bill?
Yeah.
Park and Rec was your baby for so long. I just asking.
No, I'm fine with it.
And Cynthia, you're good?
Yes, I think I'm good. I'm going to just ask for clarification that the only members that the Board of Supervisors will be appointing are the 5 board members of the Park and Rec Committee,
Good question.
correct?
Voting members you're talking about.
The 5 voting members that have the 5-year terms. All other members of the subcommittees can be fluid. They can come in and come out however needed. They are not going to be appointed by the Board of Supervisors.
Hmm.
Ah, Lordy. So I'm sorry, that's the fly in the ointment.
Is that in the ordinance currently? I don't remember all the wording, but do we
Yeah, 'cause I
want to
think you took the
appoint?
advisory out.
I kind of think, Cynthia, we might want to say and who's,
Representing the township on these.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to exclude anybody. You know, I'm all for bringing in as many people as want to come in and volunteer. But,
I am I'm completely in with that, saying we want to include as many people. I am just asking for clarification
okay, yeah.
that that is in our ordinance, and that is what we would like to see, that the only people we appoint are the 5 voting board members. Every other member that can work in any of the subcommittees, other than the board members who are the chairs of those subcommittees, can be any member of the public who would like to join.
But
No, I think
No,
we
I
still
don't
need
think
to
so.
okay it.
I think we
Oh.
need to see them and know who they are. There are some people who we may not want,
I don't,
they may not come on with a good intention of assisting as opposed to other intentions. So I think we need to have some control over who they are, with the understanding that anybody that's a resident that wants to participate is probably going to be involved, but there's certain people I can think might be problematic if they were to wander in the door from time to time.
I
So
think-
then, do we need to, in that ordinance, then say how many members are in each of those boards, those subcommittees, and how
No, I
those
think we
people
can
get
just,
appointed?
I think we can just say as many as the board of supervisors shall appoint.
I agree. That's what I was gonna say. I don't think we should put a number on it
At least-
because, for example, the events, what do we call it? Recreation and Events Committee is probably gonna require a whole lot more people
10 to 15
than,
would be nice.
you know, other committees would need. So I would say we don't put a cap or a specific number on what those subcommittees are, but we should add that as a, you know, check off box on our application, and it should be something that the board looks at and appoints people to those subcommittees.
Like I could.
Okay, so then my second
Detman
question,
Sorry, hold, 1 second.
Yep.
Like I could see Mr. Detman would want to be on recreation.
Mhm.
You know, Mr. Hutton, I got the impression would be more interested in parks and trails.
Right,
So you automatically have a delineation there.
right.
So you can kind of get a sense.
Or events, because he was a community planner.
He was a
so-
community planner, but he seemed to indicate more he liked the open space and the parks and the. Yeah.
No,
Let's
we don't
just
need to
bring
talk
it
about
with-
that.
Yeah.
It'll
So
settle
that's what I'm
itself
saying,
out.
like
but
each,
yeah,
each
yeah.
candidate will kind of
Right.
present themselves.
Right.
As.
That's
as-
why I don't think we should put in a specific number to those subcommittees,
Yeah.
but I do think that we need to see who's
Oversee.
applying and, yeah.
Yeah. And I do think that the chairs of each of those subcommittees has to be a voting member of the regular Park and Rec board.
Yeah.
Agreed. Mhm.
so we are gonna appoint those people that are going on the advisory committees.
Subcommittees.
Yeah.
We, the supervisor, are gonna
Yes.
appoint.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm just trying to keep it straight.
Is that clarified? Cynthia?
well then, do we have to say what the appointment term is? Do we have to, I mean, it's now getting down to
We're
the
going down
very,
the rabbit hole where we may end up deciding that we don't want to do this at all. It's part of the thought exercise. We don't do
Yeah.
thought exercises very often, so.
well, no, but I'm bringing up that thought. If we are
How
going
about
to
year-
appoint them,
year to year?
then do we
Annual.
have to say what the term is?
Annual.
And if somebody comes in halfway through the year and says, well, I'd really like to help with the 4th of July parade or the fall festival or something, and we go, we really need people, can we appoint? And that's all. It is the thought process. It's like, go with that thought, then what's the next thought? So,
Maybe we should do staggered 3-year terms then for membership of the
No.
regular.
No,
board.
I think a
No?
calendar year, but they don't.
No, we have 5 years right now.
No, I'm talking about the subcommittees.
No, but I'm talking about the regular membership.
Oh.
Is
Yeah,
5
right.
years too long then?
No,
Maybe,
fine.
that's what I was saying. 3 years.
I keep the 5 years. You have 5-member main board, 5 years staggered.
yeah, because in that
That
way
way-
you're changing one board member per
Well,
year.
continuity. I mean,
Right.
every 3 years, you're gonna have this thing changing
Right.
possibility.
Yeah.
So you gotta have some continuity in this. Now, the advisory people that are on there, sure, they can just re-up every year if they
I
want to
think
stay
that
on
should
it.
be an annual, because, you know, you may have people who can't decide they don't want to do it. You may have people that maybe they
Well,
think
like,
they want to, but they're not able to actually contribute, and then we need to find, you know, fill that spot with
Yeah.
somebody else.
you have the 300th anniversary, hopefully you can find lots of people that'll help with that next year, all right?
I don't
But
know
then
that
the
the
following-
reply alls for Mike have not been outstanding.
I'm just saying, but then the following year, all those people don't need to apply.
Right.
Hopefully you're back down to, 3 or 4. maybe.
Well, as to the 300 committee, you know, go to Park and Rec people. I'm sure some of them would be interested.
Okay.
Let's have that
Let's
conversation
finish
after we're
this.
done with
Yes,
this.
I'm just making that suggestion. Yeah, I'm ready to
May or
wrap
may
up
not be
this,
involved in one of my updates.
wrap up this conversation.
Matt has a lot of thoughts percolating.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, visualize the process and make it manageable on an annual basis. Because I find, these types of boards are most effective when there are clear expectations. And so I'm just listening, trying to visualize what that would look like from a staffing standpoint on how we communicate to the public and asking for volunteers to these committees. And I need to think that through. I like the 5 member idea. I like the committee idea. I need to process how those committees are advertised and at what frequency and what that mechanism is, because that's a change to how we go about doing things right now. And I think that's the part that, maybe, Sean and I will work on crafting an update to this ordinance that we can
Well,
review in 2 weeks.
Having an in-house event coordinator
Yes,
will keep things on point.
yes.
So when they have to meet, it may only be 15 minutes, boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
Because the event coordinator is being paid,
Agreed.
money to do that. So outside of our regular staff. So
I like the idea. I think we can make it work. Let us, in 2 weeks, we can revisit this conversation. We'll work on coming up with an update. Forward you the updated ordinance in the meantime, once we have something. And let's continue this in 2 weeks. Is that?
that's fine. I have one more question for Sean. Are we creating a nightmare for ourselves?
Yes.
What would be your recommendation?
You obviously want a lot more control over this than I think a lot of other townships necessarily seek to exert or apply to a Parks and Rec board. Keep in mind that you're creating a body that is advisory to you and their final decisions run through you.
Well, the problem is that they haven't.
Yeah, but if you're creating it that way, then they must.
Right, but
They have it.
well, I mean, it's been a bit of a wild west sometimes with Park and Rec. I mean,
But they have no authority, they have no money.
they don't. I don't know.
If you're asking me, Mr. Chair, whether or not the discussion you've been having could make things more difficult for the board, my answer is yes.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is putting yourselves deeper into the woods, when the whole point of this board is to get yourselves out of the woods and just stay separated and make the final decision, which is what you're here for.
Right.
So basically what we're doing now is we're having a subcommittee. It's gonna have a chairman of that subcommittee who's gonna be on the 5-member board. So that 5-member board is then gonna vote to do A, B, or C, and then that result is then forwarded up to us as the supervisors. They still have no authority,
Right.
so it still comes back to us. But I don't think you want to get too involved in it. Let them do all the, in quote, legwork. Come back with what their suggestions are. And if you don't like it, well, then you don't like it. If you do like their suggestion, well, then you go ahead and vote for it.
If you're not giving them a budget and the power to spend that budget directly, then all you're doing is making things more complicated than they need to be.
How would you recommend? We're in an awkward spot. We're trying to encourage more and more people to be involved across a wide array of our residents. And unless people are given the impression that they're actually able to do something, people tend to not want to volunteer.
Agreed.
So like we're trying to create an environment where people feel like they have a little bit of a say. Obviously, we all know the buck stops with us, but we're trying to create an environment where, you know, if we have 15 people that want to be involved in Park and Rec, right now, we, you know, with the advisory committee that used to be the junior advisory, whatever it is, you know, we only have spots for 11, you know,
But you're also trying, it's clear from the conversation you've been having for the last 15 minutes or so, that you're trying to strike a balance between encouraging members of the public to join in and take part in that, but also keeping a significant modicum of control for yourselves to make sure things don't go off the rails.
right.
That's a public balance that every board has to find for themselves one way or another. I mean, what it comes down to is you're not going to want to delegate control that you're not going to want to delegate. So it may come down to encouraging people to take part in other ways rather than, because if you're not willing to give up certain levels of control, then all you're really doing is paying lip service to that. And I know that's not what this board is trying to do.
Right.
What the board's trying to do is clearly encourage more members of the public. But if you're not going to separately fund the projects and you're going to have oversight yourselves, which is completely fine and appropriate, then it might come down to having to encourage members of the public in other ways to take part.
Which we've never been able to actually accomplish.
Well, that was then, this is now, who knows? Who knows?
Well, so you missed out on it.
Oh.
You know, I said, do you think this is turning into a bad, well, for all intents and purposes, something that's unyielding and not necessarily to our benefit? And Sean's answer was yes.
Well, I think trying, you know, what was a comment that I said to someone the other day? Constant analysis leads to actual paralysis. I think we should set up the board, 5 voting members and ad hoc, set up the committees in the ordinance, and then
But do we make them ad hoc and let just the 5-member board decide how it goes? That's kind of like with, you know, Sean's whole point is we create delineations, like we want 5 and then we want 3 and then we want this and we want that, and we've got terms. We are
appointing the people.
We're
come.
taking all control.
I don't think
Or do we just,
I don't think we let the 5 voting members or the subcommittees or the chairman decide who or who can't be
I agree.
a member, so. Yeah, that we
But do
just
we-
oversee who's coming in.
but do we want to formally adopt this drop-down menu form of the Park and Rec Board, as it were? You know, click on
Excuse me?
this, click on this, click on this, you know.
Cynthia wants to say something.
Yeah, go ahead, Cynthia.
I see your point, Greg, and I think we are making it more difficult. If we want to include more residents in our township, I think the Board of Supervisors has influence over the Board of Park and Rec. And then the subcommittees should be open to all members of the public without us having to okay them. If we want to include more people, my observations of the Park and Rec Board is that the advisory committee doesn't get to have much of a voice at the meetings because there is 7 members of the voting board. I feel like if you have smaller venues, smaller arenas, people will be able to have a voice and be able to feel like they are part of volunteering for the township. We will have influence over the board members of Park and Rec. And if we are confident in our choosing of those board members, we should feel confident in those people to be able to work with the 3 subcommittees that they are working with.
Can I ask you a question, a clarifying question, Cynthia? Are you saying then that anyone who wants to show up to a subcommittee meeting and be a part of it for that meeting or maybe 2 or 3 meetings can do that without actually being appointed by anyone?
Yes, I do.
How are we, but that's a problem because we're giving somebody who just shows up off the street a vote in something.
No, then they don't have a vote. I mean, the
Well, they're
voting
voting in the
board member-
subcommittee.
okay, so but a vote, what does a vote mean? If you're going to go there to me, those subcommittees are where volunteers are encouraged and cultivated and want to come in. At the moment, we have no avenues for volunteers to come and say, well, I'd like to come and volunteer at the Easter egg hunt or something. At the moment, all volunteers for the township comes from every voting board member on all the boards. So to me,
So
if
is
you
that,
want to
that
have,
sounds like a message issue as much as it is a personnel board makeup issue.
the message is, if you would like to have more people involved, you need to give them an avenue. I feel like it's been that, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. We've never really asked for people who would like to volunteer for the Fall Fest to come out and volunteer. It's always been the people from Veterans Affairs and from Park and Rec. That's the only people you ask for. But if you have a recreation subcommittee, the board member can then say, let's go out and find some more volunteers for that. I feel like if you start really closing in that we are now going to be the only ones who get to choose who's on those smaller boards, you might find it a little harder to include more people. It's just my observation.
I don't think so. I still think we need to, I'm not comfortable with the idea of having just anyone walking in the door off the street, because it's saying they're a resident, they could be from Percy and a child molester. So
You could also have a group decide to crash a meeting and because there's 10 of them and only 2 regular members, they could, if we just leave it open to anybody has a say.
I mean, basically, if someone submits an application, says they want to be a member, volunteer member, I can't see us turning them down unless, a Google search shows up, they've just been released from prison or
They
something.
have a background issue.
So,
I agree.
I think we need to think about this some more. I think let you guys draw something up and we think about this a little bit more.
I'm
But-
sure other townships have ordinances, and I'm
That's
sure Jeff's done a few
that's where
before.
this one came from.
Yeah, but it's, thank you everyone for being willing to have the conversation because we need to have these conversations. So, all right, very good. Is there any other administration comments?
Oh, yes.
Oh, boy, I'm gonna use the bathroom. Feel free, just go ahead.
Having to do with appointments.
I just wanted to update the board. Next week, there will be one more interview for the Park and Rec. Vacancy will be Gina Hunt. She'll be here at 7 a.m. and I've confirmed that with her. I'd also like to make up thanks to
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
I was gonna say, wait a
I
minute.
What did I
will
say?
7 a.m.
AM.
So, excuse me, sorry. I've been hiding here too long.
Yeah.
The other item I want to bring up, thanks to Cynthia for pointing out, it snuck by me. One of the applications we actually received, I did not realize it was for Veterans Committee. And looking at our current resolution for appointments, there are still 2 vacancies on that board. So I would like the board's blessing to bring Angelo Barone in to meet with the board next week and include him in the appointments that are about to take place unless the board has any objections.
I would second that, and please send Mr. Taranotsky, I know I'm not saying that right.
Tustanovsky.
Thank you. A note about that. He may want to come and meet the gentleman himself.
But I will make sure I do that.
Thank you.
The second update I had for the board was I did reach out to the 300 committee. The volunteers that have been previously participating since 2019, as Greg hinted to earlier in the meeting, the responses have been less than favorable. So I'm still working to compile them. It's been a short week, so I don't really have my head wrapped around those that have said they would participate yet, but I wanted to get the board's guidance based on the responses I have received. If they would be open after a presentation at the next meeting to considering opening it up further to other committees in a wider volunteer base, putting it out on our social media and expanding that search.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes, I agree. It should be asked for all membership of New Britain Township.
We're gonna need volunteers and a lot of people. I know what you have 2 positive responses.
I believe I had 2 positive responses to be on the, committee. A lot of other people, a few others saying they would be interested, but didn't want to commit to being on the
meeting.
committee itself, but would be interested in volunteering.
Okay.
So, and there are a few people that have just moved out of the area.
Yes.
A lot of ignores.
And that's why I'm coming to the board looking for that
Yeah,
guidance.
I
today.
think we need to open it up, as I stated previously, to all of our other boards and to the public.
Since we're in administration, did you talk about the 1-page flyer yet?
Not yet.
That should be right at the top. We are looking for volunteers, 300 committee.
Yeah. Okay, could we do that this week, put it out to all of the current committees? With a, a fan of due dates, put due date for this Friday to see what we get. And if we still need more people, then we can post it publicly. Do we want, or do we?
I
can
think
we
we're
do
gonna need more
simultaneously?
people.
You want us to do it
Let's do one
simultaneously?
simultaneously.
Yeah, simultaneously.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Is there a New Britain Township Historical Society or a Chalfont Society?
We don't
Or is
have
there-
anything historical.
I think there's a Chalfont Historical Society.
Mary Jane Clemens is your best source
Yeah.
for historical information for Chalfont and New Britain.
Because I think we should, for societies, we should reach out to those, even if they are not members of New Britain Township, the Doylestown Historical Society, because they might have some more information and some good ideas about what we could do or what's our history.
I think that would be good for the committee to do, but right now we really need to get a move on this. But that, yeah, it's a good idea, but I think we need to find members and then
Put in a couple
assign them,
followers.
assign them.
Well,
tasks. Or we'll find.
They might have New Britain Township residents on their committees and part of that historical society.
Well, if we're
it might
putting this
be-
out to the public, that should reach hopefully.
Mhm.
I think what I'm hearing is I can look into that and make sure the societies see what we're putting out there.
Okay.
Sure.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it. That's all I have.
Thank you.
One more thing with the newsletter. I have some examples for the board to preview after the meeting. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
take up meeting time for that. Pretty excited about it. So after the meeting, just stop by my desk here, my mobile desk, and I can show you the images. That's everything I've got.
Police.
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing for the board today.
Brevity, we love it. Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since our last meeting, Waltersburg culvert repairs have been completed. That road is now open. The road program contract A, Cedar Hill Road and Schoolhouse Road have been completed, except for the line striping. And we in Public Works are in the process of scratching and repaving Creek Road between 152 and Calico.
So whose job over the weekend was it to go out and put things in a way so that all the rain didn't wash out Walters Road again?
We did, well, we got quite a bit of rain, but it wasn't.
2 inches.
I told you so.
I resemble that remark.
We didn't get the torrential downpours that we usually get, not this, okay? Yeah. It's been a steady, slow rain and everything can handle. As it's designed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Engineer.
No, Ryan's the one who designed it. Is that all?
That is all.
Is there any questions for Ryan since he gave a report? I'm sorry, is there any questions for Chief? I should have asked.
No,
No? All good? Well, I do have a question for Chief. Are you Candy? When would you like that by? And are you planning on doing it again this year? Actually, I should ask that first.
Yeah, so we're actually planning 2 events for Halloween. We're partnering with New Seasons to do a trunk or treat, and we have a couple other agencies that are going to join us. That's going to be on the Friday before Halloween, the 28th. Then we'll do the candy that we traditionally do on Halloween in the developments.
Okay. And then if any of the public would be interested in donating candy to be handed out, what are your specifications or drop off dates requested?
We'd like to have everything probably by the 25th.
Okay. Very cool.
Do you have any information you want me to put on the website for our events and put out there
For trunk or treat.
for trunk or treat?
Yeah.
No,
I'll send you a flyer.
thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Parks and Rec.
So there was no Parks and Rec board meeting last month. I just wanted to say that we are continuing to heckle the current provider of our playground equipment that has been on order. There have been COVID delays upon COVID delays upon COVID delays, and our patience is worn thin. So we're going to continue heckling until.
Do you
it's there.
think we need to find a different provider?
We have put a down payment on it, which makes it a little more complicated. If you remember from last year's budget, we used the amount that was in last year's budget as a down payment to get things moving. So that's the wrinkle that we're trying to navigate currently.
Well, I guess we entered into a contract, and if they haven't delivered, I'm sure that contract can be
So we're exploring those options right now.
taken care of by our solicitor.
That's it.
Finance.
Just two quick points. The first being to thank the board for their involvement last week in the budget process meetings. We as staff thought that those went very well, and that input has been much appreciated moving forward. And the process I found to be a lot easier than it was last year. Even though I was just starting last year, I feel like we're in a much better position this year that last year. So that's to everyone's involvement here. Department heads as well, getting those requests in a timely fashion as well. And then the second piece would just be that currently in the process of closing September activity, and the board can expect to see those reports at some point next week as we continue to close for the quarter. So that's it.
Very cool. Are any questions for anyone? Nope. All right, board comments.
Looking at me first.
Anyone? No, I'm just, at this point,
No.
my neck hurts.
I was gonna just quickly, I know we covered this last time, but since Ryan's here, Ryan, please make sure the Public Works crew knows how much we appreciate the work they put into the Veterans Fall Festival. And Chief, I don't know if we said it last time, but the officers that you had here are very appreciative for them being here as well.
It was a great event, made great by everyone that would participate. I'm sorry you missed it this year.
Any comments? Cynthia, any comments?
No comments.
All right. We've already covered the committee reports for Park and Rec. So I'm just gonna go to public comment.
We scared them all away.
All right. Announcements. Does staff have any announcements? All right, so once again, I will announce that the board will be going into executive session following this meeting to discuss personnel. My only announcement is to say the following: the next meeting of the Board of Supervisors of New Britain Township will take place on Monday, October 17th, 2022 at 7 p.m. here in the Township Building. Agenda and meeting materials will be posted to the Township website prior to the meeting date at newbritontownship.org. As well, a recording of today's meeting will be available within the next 24 to 36 hours on the Township's YouTube site. After those announcements, I will now take a motion to adjourn.
So,
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Bye, Cynthia.
Well, no. Can you,
Executive session.
He has to say.
Oh.
oh, you send the meeting. Oh, okay.
Oh, I was just gonna say, should I just reconnect to the Zoom link that we had this morning?
I will start another one and send you the link.
I'm gonna push into this conversation, not on the recording.